I promise I'll pay you back when I grow up." Anna's innocent promise made Jerome Carter smile. He saw it as nothing more than the pure and simple pledge of a child whose hunger had just been satisfied. A few minutes earlier, the sight of the girl, not yet 8 years old, clutching a tiny infant wrapped in a faded bath towel and whimpering from cold and hunger, had stopped him in his tracks. That impulse turned into action when the cashier's gruff voice rang out, aimed squarely at Anna after she presented a handful of loose change, not enough for the carton of milk. "If you can't afford it, get out. This isn't a soup kitchen." Just as Anna's small shoulders slumped in disappointment, a calm hand placed a gleaming black credit card on the counter. "She wasn't stealing," Jerome said. She asked politely. The cashier looked up, startled. "Mr. Carter." "Sir, the girl, look at her. She doesn't belong in here." "I'll be the judge of that," Jerome said. Around them, people had started to take notice. A woman near the magazine rack whispered, "That's the girl who sleeps under the bridge." Another man near the coolers added, "I heard her father." Jerome bent down to look at Anna. "Is there anything you need?" Anna looked up at him, her wide eyes innocent and welling with tears. "Milk, for my little brother." Jerome Carter straightened up. "Ring her up for all the milk she wants," he told the cashier, "and anything else she might need." The cashier scowled, annoyed, but she knew better than to pick a fight with a man like Jerome Carter. He was a VIP customer, one they couldn't afford to lose. She handed Anna a bag packed with food, drinks, and even a thick, warm jacket. "Thank you, sir," Anna said, her eyes sparkling. "I promise I'll pay you back when I grow up." Jerome smiled. "Just stay healthy and strong, that's all the payment I need," he said, gently ruffling her hair. "Now, would you like me to take you home?" Anna hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, please." Jerome led Anna and Elijah back to their makeshift shelter under the bridge. Their mother, Sarah, was asleep in a corner, shivering from the cold. Anna crept over to her. Mom, wake up." Sarah awoke with a jolt, and her first reflex wasn't surprise, but pure, unadulterated terror. Her eyes flew open, and she instantly pulled her 2 children into her embrace, her body going rigid like a cornered animal at the sight of the unfamiliar man. "Who are you? What do you want?" Her voice was raw with wariness. "It's okay, Mom," Anna quickly reassured her. "He's nice. He bought milk for Elijah and got me this jacket." Sarah's eyes swept from Jerome's calm face down to his expensive clothes and then to the bag of groceries. Her suspicion didn't subside. Instead, it became more complex, laced with a deeper fear. She glanced quickly toward the road, as if checking to see if anyone else had followed them. "We don't need anything," she said, her gaze still sweeping the area. "Thank you, but please, you should go. It's not good for anyone to see you here." Jerome noticed the tremor in her voice. "I mean you no harm," he explained gently. "It's too cold tonight. At the very least, let me help your children get somewhere warm to sleep." He took out his phone, showing her the confirmation screen for a clean, safe motel room he had just booked nearby. "I'll come back in the morning, and we can talk more then." Sarah stared at the phone, then at her 2 shivering children. A dry cough from Elijah was the deciding blow. The conflict was etched on her face, and finally, her maternal instinct won. She gave a slow, heavy nod. At the motel, after making sure they had everything they needed, Jerome prepared to leave. "I'll be back tomorrow," he repeated his promise. "We'll figure out a better solution, I promise." Sarah didn't reply, only pulling her children closer, her gaze holding a secret and a fear that Jerome couldn't yet comprehend, leaving him with the sinking feeling that helping this family would be far more complicated than simply booking a room. The next morning, Jerome Carter drove to the motel, a bag of still warm pastries and a few juice boxes for the kids on the passenger seat. His promise hadn't been just words. He had spent the night devising a plan, a real way out for the small family. He knocked on the door of room 107. No answer. He knocked again, a little harder. Still nothing but silence. An unsettling feeling crept over him, and he tried the handle. The door was unlocked. Inside, the room was empty and suspiciously neat. The blankets were hastily folded, and not a single trace of them remained, as if the small family had never been there at all. Disappointment washed over Jerome. He assumed Sarah hadn't trusted him. Just as he was about to turn away, his eyes caught a neatly folded piece of paper left on the pillow. It was a drawing from Anna. It was made with crayons. On one side, she had drawn Jerome, standing next to a radiant sun with the words, "The kind sir." But the other side of the paper depicted a starkly different scene. 3 small stick figures, a mother and 2 children, fleeing from a massive, angry shadow, colored in heavily with blazing red eyes. Jerome froze, his breath catching in his throat. He stared at the drawing. This wasn't a rejection of his kindness. It was a warning, a cry for help. He immediately called his security team, requesting a sweep of all traffic cameras around the motel and the underpass where they had once stayed, but the family seemed to have vanished into thin air. Sarah, he realized, was experienced at running. A thought sparked in Jerome's mind. What does a desperate mother who needs money to move do? She sells something. He began his search systematically. With the family's picture on his phone, he scoured every thrift shop and pawn shop in the area. He struck gold at the 5th thrift store, a cluttered, musty shop tucked at the end of an alley. The owner initially waved him off, but when Jerome placed a large bill on the counter, the old man's memory seemed to clear up. He nodded, recalling a frantic-looking woman who had hastily sold a few items early that morning. Kept looking over her shoulder at the door. He muttered, like the devil himself was on her tail. The owner led Jerome to a pile of old children's clothes, and there, nearly buried beneath the rest, was a faded blue puffer jacket. He recognized it instantly. It was the one Elijah had been wearing last night. Without a word of negotiation, Jerome paid for the jacket and rushed back to his car. His hands trembled as he checked each pocket. The right one was empty. His heart sank, but in the left pocket, his fingers brushed against something hard and solid. It was a cheap, cracked screen burner phone. With a sense of foreboding, Jerome powered it on. The screen flickered to life, showing a final red sliver of battery. He quickly navigated to the messages. There were no sent texts, but in the drafts folder, there was an unfinished message, the recipient field still blank. "Somebody please help. Darnell found us. He won't stop. The kids are at the old warehouse near the docks." The message cut off abruptly. The phone's screen flickered one last time and went dark, the battery dead. Darnell. The name was unfamiliar, yet it carried a terrifying weight. Who was Darnell? And why was that name powerful enough to make a mother flee in terror, leaving behind the very kindness she desperately needed? The oppressive air of the warehouse felt like a trap. Jerome moved quickly and silently between the old shipping crates, his sharp eyes scanning every shadow, every dark corner. He didn't call out their names. A mistake like that could cost them all everything. Instead, he listened. And then, through the sound of the wind whistling through the corrugated metal roof, he heard it, a suppressed sob. It was faint, but in the dead silence, it rang out like a thunderclap. The sound came from behind a stack of old tires. Jerome made a hand signal, a professional gesture he'd learned from his security team, and then slowly approached. He saw them, Anna and Elijah, cowering in the darkness, small and trembling. When she saw him, Anna's eyes widened, but not with relief. It was abject terror. She shook her head frantically, her horrified gaze locked on a point deep in the shadows behind him. Jerome understood instantly. He wasn't the first one to find them. A voice emerged from the very shadows Anna was staring at. Well, a little family reunion. All that's missing is your mummy." From the darkness, a figure stepped out, gaunt and stooped, with sunken eyes and a sneering smile. Jerome didn't have to think. Instinct took over. He moved smoothly, positioning himself to shield Darnell from the 2 children. He could feel Anna's small fingers clutch his pant leg in a desperate grip. "Who the hell are you?" Darnell asked, his tone dripping with contempt as he eyed Jerome's expensive suit. "Some kind of white knight. Back off. This is family business. They're not going anywhere with you," Jerome replied, his voice low and steady, a rock in the face of a brewing storm. Darnell scoffed, a dry, humorless sound. "Oh, really? They're my kids. They belong to me." He stressed the words as if he were talking about property. Darnell's sneer vanished, replaced by a scowl of brutish impatience. He was done talking. He just wanted to take back what was his. And then he lunged forward, his sinewy hand reaching out to snatch the children. Just then, a staggering figure emerged from behind a large steel pillar. It was Sarah, looking utterly broken. Her clothes were tattered, one sleeve soaked through with blood. Her face was ashen, but her eyes burned with a final, desperate resolve. She stumbled toward him, one hand clutching her wound, the other holding out a small wooden box. "Take it. Everything. It's all in here. The proof." Jerome quickly took the box. Sarah looked at him, then at her sobbing children. A faint, pained smile touched her lips. "Protect them, Jerome. Promise me." The words had barely left her lips when her eyes glazed over. She collapsed to the floor, unconscious. "Mommy! Mom!" Anna and Elijah's heart-wrenching cries shattered the dead silence that followed Sarah's fall. Jerome dropped to his knees, one hand supporting her limp body, the other gripping the small wooden box, the testament to the promise he had just accepted. The moment of stillness passed. Sarah's appearance and collapse seemed only to enrage the beast within Darnell. His eyes widened, no longer on the children, but locked on the box in Jerome's hand. He understood. "The bitch," Darnell hissed, his addict's haze momentarily replaced by raw desperation and fury. "She thinks she can get away from me. Give me that box." He surged forward, all his earlier sluggishness gone, replaced by the ferocity of a cornered man. But Jerome was ready. He gently laid Sarah down, then sprang to his feet, shielding both her and the weeping children behind him. "Back off." Jerome snarled, his usual composure now forged into a wall of cold steel. "Get out of my way," Darnell roared, swinging an arm to shove Jerome aside and grab the box. Jerome wasn't a fighter, but he was a protector. He didn't meet the attack head-on. Instead, he took a step back, drawing Darnell's attention with him, and then shoved a tall, rusted metal shelving unit with all his might. Crash! The shelf toppled over with a deafening roar. A cascade of scrap metal, empty boxes, and dust rained down onto the floor, creating a temporary barrier between them and Darnell. "Anna!" Jerome yelled, his voice cutting through the ringing sound of the collapse. "Listen to me. Grab your brother's hand and run straight to the car, now." The authority in Jerome's voice snapped Anna out of her panic. She let out a sob, wiped her tears, then gripped Elijah's small hand and pulled him into a run. They bolted through the warehouse doors, heading for the faint light of the road. Darnell let out a furious howl, frantically clawing at the wreckage to get through. Seizing the precious seconds, Jerome bent down, mustering all his strength to hoist Sarah's unconscious body over his shoulder. The weight made him stagger, but the thought of his promise to this woman and the two children waiting for him fueled him with an impossible strength. He turned and ran. "I'll find you. I'll kill you all." Darnell's hate-filled screams echoed from behind, growing fainter as Jerome burst out of the warehouse and into the cold evening air. He didn't look back. Behind him was their dark past. Ahead, in his car, was the fragile future he had just sworn to protect at all costs. Jerome's car screeched to a halt at the emergency room entrance. He didn't wait for the paramedics, lifting Sarah out of the car himself. His voice urgent yet clear, abdominal wound, significant blood loss, unconscious for about 10 minutes. Behind him, Anna and Elijah, their faces streaked with tears, clung to each other, lost and terrified amidst the stark white lights and the controlled chaos of the hospital. The moment Sarah was wheeled into surgery, Jerome pulled out his phone. He didn't make a standard call to the police. He dialed the head of his security team directly, his voice like ice. The old warehouse near the docks, a man named Darnell. I want the police there. Make sure he doesn't get away. The call ended. Jerome turned and knelt before the two children. He wiped the tears from their cheeks with a hand still grimy from the warehouse. "Your mom is going to be okay," he said, his voice softer now. "The doctors are taking care of her, and that bad man, he's never going to bother you again. I promise." A few days later, Sarah awoke in a quiet, private hospital room. The first thing she felt wasn't the sharp pain from her wound, but the silence. A peaceful silence she hadn't known in years. Jerome was sitting in a chair by her bed, and when he saw her open her eyes, he offered a relieved smile. "Where are my children?" was her first question, her voice frail. "They're safe. They're with a trusted nanny of mine," Jerome reassured her. "And Darnell, he's where he belongs." He placed his hand gently over hers. "That box. Everything in it has been turned over to my lawyers. They'll make sure he can never harm you or your children again." For the first time in a very long time, Sarah felt an invisible weight lift from her shoulders. She closed her eyes, and tears began to stream down her cheeks. But this time, they weren't tears of fear, but of liberation. Her recovery was swift. After being discharged, Jerome didn't take them back to any motel. He brought the family of three straight to a secluded, luxurious yet cozy apartment within his own secure complex. Everything they could possibly need was already there, from new clothes and toys for the children to a fully stocked refrigerator. Anna and Elijah, timid at first, began to explore their new world. They no longer had to sleep in fear or worry about their next meal. For the first time, they were allowed to simply be children. With solid financial and legal backing from Jerome, the small family's life gradually found its footing. Darnell was facing a string of serious charges with irrefutable evidence from the wooden box Sarah had risked her life to protect. The storm seemed to have passed, but amidst this newfound peace, no one suspected that a fateful secret, hidden within a small memento, was about to be revealed. In the safety of Jerome's apartment, Sarah's wounds, both physical and emotional, began to heal. The sound of Anna and Elijah's laughter had replaced their tears, painting the silent walls with life. One late afternoon, as the golden sun streamed through the window, Jerome was on the sofa, reading a book, though his mind was more focused on Anna's soft giggles as she sat on the floor, engrossed in her drawing. Sarah was in the kitchen, the gentle clinking of a knife on a cutting board, providing a peaceful soundtrack of normalcy. Just then, Anna looked up, and as her hair fell back, it revealed a silver chain around her neck. The afternoon light caught the pendant, sending a faint glint flashing into Jerome's eyes. He froze. The smile on his lips froze solid. The book in his hands suddenly felt heavy as lead. It was just a flicker, a strangely familiar feeling. Jerome narrowed his eyes, trying to get a better look. A small silver pendant, two interlocking circles, a symbol of infinity. A simple design, yet he felt as if he had touched it 1,000 times before. "Anna," Jerome's voice was quiet, with a strange edge to it. "Your necklace. May I see it for a moment?" Anna happily trotted over, holding out the necklace for him. As Jerome's fingers brushed against the worn metal, his breath hitched. He turned it over. There, near the clasp, was a tiny, almost invisible scratch. A memory that had been sealed away for years had just shattered. Sarah walked out from the kitchen, noticing Jerome's unusual expression. "Is something wrong, Jerome?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes were still glued to the necklace. "Sarah, this necklace. Where did you get it?" Sarah smiled, a sad smile. "Oh, it's a keepsake," she explained. "It belonged to my sister, Eliza. She passed away many years ago. When I was cleaning out her things, I found it and kept it to remember her by." "Elisa, The name struck Jerome like a bolt of lightning. The world around him spun. He looked up at Sarah, his eyes filled with a raw shock and pain she had never seen in him before. This necklace. Jerome took a deep breath, fighting to keep his voice from breaking. I was the one who gave it to her, a long, long time ago. When we were in love. The air in the room grew thick. Sarah stood frozen, the hand that had been wiping a dish on her apron falling limp to her side. How is that possible? We lost touch, Jerome continued, his voice laced with regret and an old pain that felt brand new. I tried to find her, but I couldn't. I never knew she had passed away, and I never knew she was your sister. He looked at Sarah, a new, painful understanding dawning in both their eyes. It's a small world, and a cruel one. The revelation of the necklace changed everything. The connection through Eliza brought a profound new meaning to his help. With the weight of Darnell lifted and a solid anchor in Jerome, Sarah began her true healing journey. The sleepless, nightmare-filled nights grew less frequent, replaced by dreams of a future she had never dared to imagine. One day, Jerome brought her a laptop. "Your story deserves to be heard," he said simply. And so she wrote. Her book, titled Under the Bridge, was born a raw account of her struggle and survival. It quickly became a bestseller, making a significant impact and serving as a source of inspiration for countless women in similar situations. Sarah didn't stop there. She became a public speaker, using her own story to advocate for and help others. 10 years later, Anna, now nearly 18, stands confidently on stage at a fundraising gala. In the audience, Jerome, Sarah, and Elijah watch, their eyes filled with pride. Anna smiles, her voice clear and strong, resonating through the hall. "Many years ago, I was a shivering little girl on a cold winter night, holding my starving little brother with nothing to my name but a promise," she began. "I promised a kind man. I promise I'll pay you back when I grow up." Her gaze finds Jerome's. He gives a slight nod, a warm smile gracing his lips. "Today," Anna continued, her hand instinctively rising to touch the silver necklace that has never left her neck, "I understand that a debt of kindness can never be repaid with money. It can only be paid forward by extending that same kindness to others who need it, just as I once did. The Eliza's Hope Foundation, which we are launching tonight," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "is named for the aunt I never had the chance to meet. It lives on in this necklace, a symbol of a love that transcended time and tragedy. It lives on in the kindness of a man who chose to stop on a cold night. And it lives on in all of us, every time we choose to offer a hand instead of turning away." Jerome looked at the young woman on stage, no longer the starving little girl from under the bridge, but a beacon of hope. He had saved her and her children, but they, in turn, had saved him, transforming a painful memory into a living, beautiful legacy. The promise had been fulfilled. The circle was now complete.